School District Board of Education Candidates Night, sponsored by the Williamsville PTSA Council and moderated this evening by the League of Women Voters of Buffalo and Niagara. At this time, I'll turn it over to Terry Parks, who will give us the rules of the evening.
Thank you, Sarah. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that encourages informed and active participation of citizens in government. The League works to influence public policy through education and advocacy. Moderating school board candidates meetings is only one of our many functions. Membership is open to everyone. Learn more about the League at our website, lwvbn.org. The ground rules for this candidate forum. A candidate must be present at the forum conducted by the League to present his or her statement, either in person or by remote. Presentation should be strictly confined to issues, not personalities. The order of opening statements has been determined by the order in which the candidate's name appears on the current election ballot. This event will end at 8 p.m. The format for tonight's forum, Sarah Smith-Ronan is our timekeeper. She will raise a yellow paddle when the speaker has 30 seconds remaining and a red stop paddle when time has expired. The candidates are expected to stop when completing the sentence being spoken at the time. Each candidate shall have 3 minutes for an opening statement. Biographical sketches and the platform outline are done here. Each candidate shall have 2 minutes to respond to each question. All questions have been submitted in advance for this evening. We will ask only questions that can be answered by all candidates. Questions directed to one candidate will not be asked. Questions have been screened based on appropriateness, non-redundancy, and time constraints. Questions will be asked of candidates in rotating order. Each candidate will be allowed 2 minutes for a closing statement to summarize thoughts or reiterate points brought forth during the meeting. This forum is designed to be a dialogue between the audience and the candidates. It is not a debate. So the candidates this evening are Eric Borenstein, Maureen Poulin, Sean LeMay, Dr. Swaroop Singh is remote, Reverend Terry King, and Dr. Michael Littman. If you would, any candidate would like me, well, let's see, Dr. Singh, you don't have a green card, but anyway, the candidates who have a green card, if you would like me to repeat it, just hold up your repeat any question, hold up your green card, and Dr. Singh, just ask, please. Now I will introduce the candidates in reverse order for closing statements. So we will begin opening statements with Eric Borenstein.
Yes, thank you, Terry, and good evening, everyone. My thanks to the PTSA Council and League of Women Voters of Buffalo and Niagara for hosting this important event. Last month, the Williamsville Central School District was honored by the National Association of Music Merchants Foundation as one of the best communities for music education in the country. It is the 12th time that Williamsville has earned that national recognition. At the same time, at my urging, the district hosted a VIP tour of our new music facilities and upgrades. I was so proud to represent the Board of Education on this tour. These and other achievements do not happen by accident. We need advocates like me to ensure that these programs continue and thrive. In fact, the community has come to expect excellence in this area. Why? Well, music is fun. But seriously, the data is clear. A strong music and arts program prepares our children to become successful adults. Even math and science outcomes are improved, but there's more. A strong music and arts program makes our community attractive to families and even the business community. As a retired symphony orchestra CEO, I know from personal and professional experience the value of a robust music and arts program in the curriculum. With your support, I hope to continue my strong advocacy for these vital programs. Secondly, as a proud member of the Williamsville community for over 25 years, I am first and foremost motivated to ensure that current and future students receive the same quality education that our daughter Corey experienced. And finally, it's been an honor and a privilege to represent the board on the district strategic planning committee, the audit committee, as well as liaison to the Forest Elementary, Mill Middle, PTSAs, the Buffalo Philharmonic Education Committee, and the Williamsville Education Foundation. This experience will help me better serve families going forward and navigate the tricky waters ahead. A passion for music and arts, battle-tested experience, and a heartfelt desire to serve. I hope that I earn your vote on election day. Thank you.
Maureen Poulin.
I too thank the PTSA and the League of Women Voters for this opportunity. I'm a single mom. A little background information about me. My son and daughter-in-law are both professors at the University of Buffalo, and I am the proud grandmother of 2 children who attend Williamsville schools, one at Williamsville South High School and one at Forest Elementary. I was born in Massachusetts, which is where my passion for education began, as I played school in the garage. I was always the teacher. I moved to Kansas City, Missouri when I was 11 years old and lived there until just about 8 years ago when I moved here to Buffalo. I bring with me from Kansas City, Missouri, 31 years of experience as a teacher, a counselor, and a school principal. I have a bachelor's degree in education, a master's degree in guidance and counseling, an educational specialist degree in administration. My experience provides me, I think, with a unique perspective on the challenges that we all face meeting the critical needs of our children and youth, as well as a background in forming communities. During my career, I was privileged to work in several different school systems and participate in a number of committees and initiatives to advance leadership and advance programs. I was on successful grant writing teams for funding gifted and talented education, as well as technological improvements. I also have an administrative and management positions experience in the private sector. In all the positions that I have held, I've become known and respected by my colleagues and families that I've worked with as a visionary, big picture thinker, as being approachable, a strong leader, compassionate, and a creative problem solver. I'm running for school board because I am greatly concerned about the lack of trust and the adversarial relationships I have witnessed in the past several months within the Williamsville school community. I am well aware of the hard work that is necessary to rebuild that broken bond, but I believe that I have the skills, experience, and aptitudes to help in that process. 3 words characterize what I would plan to exemplify and utilize in the process: collaboration, transparency, and honesty. As a start, I personally would commit to speaking individually with every teacher and staff member in the schools with whom I would be assigned as liaison. And my door would always be open to listening to anyone who has a concern or ideas for consideration. Thank you for your consideration of me as a candidate for the school board.
Thank you. Sean LeMay.
Thank you. I'm a 6-year incumbent who has served both as vice president and president of the board. As a business owner of 20 years and married to a family of all educators, I have not stopped learning the duties that have come with my role. Since being elected, I have attended well over 100 hours of educational trainings, workshops, and law conferences, as well as various board and political events, all wrapped around education. I am proud to say that in these past 6 years, I have had a track record of commitment. What have we, As I am only one of 9 trustees accomplished, we have advocated against excessive state testing, unfair curriculums, flawed evaluation and testing systems, and unfunded mandates and laws. We've improved communication with community, teachers, administrators, and staff. We've installed safer turf fields at all of our high schools, and we've brought back recess in our elementary schools. We have almost completed a major music renovation project and are starting a major security upgrade. We've introduced 3 security officers into the district, security resource officers, and with the help of our Chinese constituents, we've introduced Mandarin in all of our high schools. We have improved some of our shortfalls in special education and have changed the mentality of no, or because it's always been, to let's find a way, if possible, to make it happen. But we can do more, starting by opening our schools in September and allowing every student back full-time in person safely. It's fundamentally important that our children rebuild those social in-person learning skills. Work with mental health professionals, building principals, teachers, and evaluate both individually and as groups our gaps and formulate plans to address it. We need to study the mental and emotional well-being of our students and teachers, especially after being remote and or away from one another this past year. Increasing school counselors and social workers, especially in the elementary schools, and offer more professional development for all of our staff in these areas. When it comes to technology, this past year has shown us more than ever the need for technology and the difficulty our parents, students, and schools have had with it. I feel our IT staff and Mr. Matursky have gone well above and beyond anything we could have ever asked them to do. But we need to continue improving our technology by reinforcing our security and protecting student data. Technology needs to enhance curriculum, not replace it. We need to also look at increasing our IT staffing and consider hiring even an IT director. Finally, I will continue to advocate for proper funding of our schools, including those unfunded mandates, maintaining local control of our schools, promoting more diversity, not only in our hiring practices, but also in the curriculum we teach, smaller class sizes, introducing foreign language earlier in our elementary schools, and continue to provide fiscally responsible budgets. Tackling these issues will help keep the education of students as the top priority, not only now, in the present, but going forward in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Swaroop Singh.
Good evening. Thank you, PTSA and the League of Women's Voters for organizing the candidates night today, and everyone for virtually attending it. And to my Muslim friends watching, Eid Mubarak. For those who attended the last 2 years of candidates night, well, I'm back. Yes, I'm a very persistent candidate and I'm doing this for the 3rd time. I'm candidate 4A this time, just FYI. My name is Swaroop Singh again. I have 2 daughters who attend our school district, East High and Country Parkway, and they love their schools. I am a resident of this wonderful community for the past 10 years. I have a doctorate in biomedical engineering from the University of North Carolina and an MBA from University of Buffalo. I'm currently working in the Treasury Department of M&T Bank. I had earlier worked as a research scientist at Roswell Park Cancer Institute. I'm currently serving on the board of Amherst Youth, the shared decision team at Country Parkway, and the treasurer and co-founder of Council of Heritage and Arts of India, a local organization based in Williamsville. I've also been a part of a team that organized diversity exchange cultural programs in Buffalo and Amherst, free medical camps, fundraiser for local causes, food donation drives, COVID care packages, and a number of children's events. If elected, I have a 4-point agenda to address learning loss and mental health issues. Under normal conditions, 1 in every 5 child in our schools would experience a mental health challenge like anxiety, depression, or a behavioral issue, and pandemic has made it worse. Study has shown us that this rate could go up to 1 in every 3 children. That's pretty high. We need more attention, more focus on this. Learning loss during pandemic has also gotten worse, and it has to be addressed. I will advocate for increased funding for programs that address both mental health and learning loss for all our children. I believe we need additional programs for mutual inclusiveness or diversity programs. I believe that presenting children with viewpoints far different from their own gives them an opportunity to think critically, promote creativity, innovation, as well as decision making. I will advocate for resources for our teachers, for training, development, and technology. And I would also advocate for environmental sustainability education. I believe we need a diverse perspective on the school board. Diversity of opinions on the school board would make us think harder about issues facing our children, helping us make stronger and more inclusive policies for our school district. Thank you.
Thank you. Reverend Terry King.
Hi, good evening. I want to thank the PTSA and the League of Women Voters for tonight's event and all that are watching remotely. I just want to point that perhaps the reason why I'm running is motivated by what I observed in 2020. I observed a board that was really working in dysfunction from my lens as a parent, as an outsider at the time, demonstrating poor leadership, not representing or listening to the needs of children, a board not in tune with the cries of parents, and a board that surrendered its leadership role to the agendas of others. The role of the board is to set the culture of the district by setting the policy and holding the district leadership accountable. We've heard from many, and I heard from one in particular on the current board that said, we don't do research, we simply vote for what's before us. On the Williamsville Central School District website, it very clearly states that the board's role is to establish district policy, develop an annual budget, vote on a superintendent's recommendations on personal matters, review course materials, study and textbooks, act as a communication link between residents and the superintendent, and employ a superintendent who's responsible for the day-to-day operation and support and hold him accountable to carry out those functions. We know based on the legal findings of the Scott Marsloff report that we really witnessed the divisive culture in the board and in leadership in the district. And that was following the agenda of a powerful outside influence that really hijacked the board and the school district to an agenda that wasn't about students and parents. Millions of dollars were squandered and spent in fighting that litigation. And it really motivated me when I started to receive letters from parents and students and neighbors and reaching out. What do we do? What can we have? Can we have a voice? You know, I have a life story, a journey that is open. I'm not shied away from sharing the message of hope with others in the community about where my life has taken me. And for the last 22 years, I have fought to lift the lives of others. I serve as the CEO of Saving Grace Ministries. I serve as the chairman of the Resource Council of Western New York. Our primary work is with homeless housing, reentry population, and serving the needs of Western New York. And I stand on 4 pillars. Every student deserves equitable education, in-person learning 5 days a week, supported for those that are electing to be remote, safety protocols to maintain for students and teachers, mental health supports, and addressing learning loss, as well as promoting diversity and equity for students and supporting teachers above all else, providing them with resources and professional development. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Michael Littman.
I would like to thank the PTSA Council, the League of Women Voters, and all of you on Zoom. I started off as a PTSA parent, and I commend all of the PTSA parents for their dedication. We deserve change and a stronger board that meets the needs of all students, that supports teachers without changing their working conditions, that listens to parents, not lectures them, that solves problems and not makes problems. I'm a student-focused consensus builder with strong communication skills who listens. I have lived with a passion for education instilled by my beloved parents. As a former board president, a proud parent of 2 North graduates with graduate degrees who contribute locally, and a member of the Amherst Town Board of Ethics with 45 years in education, I am running to enhance decision-making for safe school reopening, to overcome the COVID learning gap, and enhance our students' mental and emotional health while using our $205 million proposed budget wisely. It is very clear Our district needs change with more community-centered, not just union-selected members. The board has hurt our students, our teachers, and our community. They blame others before blaming their own experience and dysfunction. This board needs to be held accountable for the inability to meet student needs, poor planning and decision-making, lack of communication and disrespect for parents, conflicts of interest, and replaced by people like myself who have a history of board accomplishments as follows. In my 9 years on the board, I was fiscally responsible in supporting a fair budget while enhancing our outstanding programs. I supported expense reduction of $23.5 million through cooperative purchasing and other efficiencies. In my 9 years on the board, the average budget increase was $2.5 million. The 6 years I've been off the board, it is now about $5 million a year. Why? I've taken a strong stance on issues such as mental health, arts and music, girls ice hockey, modified volleyball, recess, 5th grade LOPE, expanding ESL, enhanced school nutrition, and recycling in all schools, while advocating to return more special education student placements in our own classrooms, for stronger career education, and reduced class size. In 2007, we started character education and student welfare programs. We added school resource officers, implemented Dignity for All Students Act for a safe and supportive school environment. I've supported capital projects for tech infrastructure, building maintenance, and the athletic fields. We provided teacher professional development funding for technology and academics, and I've taken a leadership role in board operations as a president and vice president. The question is, why, after being off the board for 6 years, would I want to return? There clearly is a need for passionate, experienced leadership with strong decision-making skills who have successfully served on the board. Thank you.
Thank you. And now to the questions. And we'll begin with Mr. Borenstein. A two-part question. When should school be open 5 days a week? And what criteria should be used for reopening?
The essential question of the moment. Thank you. I believe that school should be open 5 days a week as soon as it is safe. And that could be any minute. But I do believe that the goal is to have our children return to school full-time in person. And even though we're not there yet, there is a lot of momentum towards that happening. So the first part of the question is, I believe that it needs to happen as soon as it possibly can happen. The second part of the question is that we don't operate in isolation. And so as a school district, we need to take guidance that is given to us from the state, from the federal government, and from our local Erie County Department of Health, because their guidance is based on science and what we know to be true. So the second part of the question is, what is the criteria? The criteria needs to be provided to us by scientists and by people who have the facts at hand. And that's what we're waiting on right now.
Thank you. Ms. Poulin?
I'm not sure that I could add anything to what Mr. Borenstein has said about that. I know that all parents want their children in school 5 days a week as soon as possible. But I don't think there's any parent that really wants their child in a school that's unsafe. And the safety concerns are something that we have to take into consideration. What is physically possible to do within the context of our schools? And yes, we absolutely have to follow the science and listen to all of the people who give us the information about how is this prevented, and how can we be sure that our schools are safe environments for our children and our staff. Our teaching staff also has to feel that they are safe and protected and able to do their job of providing education. I know my grandsons have been doing remote schooling. I get to watch them 2 days a week do that. And the teachers are working so hard this year, that not that they don't work hard every year, but this year, of course, has been especially challenging. And I know that they want to see those people in front of them. So there are many things to consider. And if children are going back to school, but that means that their teacher's going to be different, that adds another whole element. So we have to look at those factors as well as the science of COVID, but the emotional responsibility that we have to them as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lemay.
I don't know how much I can add to that. I think it's been said that, we're not scientists. I'm not a scientist. I didn't study science in college. I studied business. So for me to question the science makes it extremely difficult for me to have a leg to stand on. I have to fall back and rely on what the scientists and the people in the community or in the world actually that know this subject matter better than I. So the question as to when, it's when the scientists tell us that it's safe to do this, when we believe it's socially and mentally safe to be able to return in conditions that allow us to be able to intermingle with one another, but be able to do it in a safe fashion. So what's the criteria? Again, it's out of my hands to set that criteria. That criteria is what is set by the science, by what they mandate, what they tell us to do. If they tell us that 6 foot social distancing is what's required, then we're going to do everything we can to do 6 feet social distancing, and as possible, as room allows, bring students back. If the criteria changes to 3 feet, as it's about to, as we're seeing, we're more than eager to bring students back under that criteria. But again, I am not a scientist, and nobody on the Board of Education is a scientist, to my knowledge. And we have to fall back on believing and relying on what the science tells us. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Singh.
Yes, I'm a scientist. and the Erie County rates are coming down for the COVID. And if it continues to come down, I think we should see school opening 5 days a week for most students. And that is really a welcoming news. Studying remotely is stressful for the children, for the teachers, and even parents. And it would be a welcome relief if school were to open 5 days a week. And as a scientist and as a parent, for me, the safety of our children is the first and the foremost criteria. If once the scientists at the CDC and other organizations come with the guidelines saying we are all clear to open schools, our school should have plans ready to do it and do it as soon as possible. Because the longer our kids are deprived of 5 days of school, there are going to be additional learning losses, additional mental health problems. So as my friends earlier said, we are dictated by science and guidance. Thank you.
Thank you. Reverend King.
Well, I agree with many of the candidates here tonight. I would move for a 5-day instruction as soon and as quickly as possible. Also supporting those that elect to remain remote with all of the supports and equity and education as possible. But when we refer to the science, I want to believe, I'm not a scientist, but I want to believe that the science is fact-based. And recently, it was alarming to read that the CDC allowed an outside body, the National Teachers Union, to rewrite guidance, which really put into question what fact-based is the guidance speaking to. What I hope for is that New York State, our New York State Health Department, in conjunction with the superintendents of our local districts, would work as collaboratively and as quickly as possible to resolve this and base it on true science and not the influence of outsiders. It saddens me, although I acknowledge and I'm appreciative of the efforts of many that have sued the district to go back in person. It saddens me that our criteria is going to be in the hands of a judge and not necessarily science-based. So I hope that we can reach out to all of those in our community scientifically and through the health department and really move towards 5-day instruction as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Dr. Littman.
Yes, as an academic, I'll be short and sweet. And I'd like to thank my colleagues for the great information, but isn't anything, you have to have a goal and you have to have a plan. So there needs to be a plan in place that we could follow to bring the students back as soon as we can, following considerations for the health and the safety of students and teachers. We do know that remote learning is never a substitute for in-person instruction. And we need to have students back in school for their own academic success and for their own mental and emotional health and the socialization they all need. So, I mean, again, as you all say, and I agree with you, that we need to be, have a plan, follow the science, and bring the students back as soon as we can so that everything moves along successfully and they end the year in school, start off the fall with the last few weeks here with the experience to be successful. Thank you.
Thank you. Our second question is going to go first to Ms. Poulin. Should Williamsville schools incorporate race and social justice topics into the curriculum? If so, how? If not, why?
That is a sensitive question, and I've seen that come up a number of times. I am aware that something that as a school board, as a school district, that we probably will have to be looking at, because the New York State Board of Regents is presenting a framework on diversity, equity, and inclusion in New York schools. They have presented their first draft in April, and they're going to be voting on it in May. And they're giving some recommendations to individual school districts about how we should go about doing that. My personal bias in that is that we should follow, as the State Department is going to no doubt direct us to develop an inclusion and diversity committee. And that committee would be looking at how we do hiring, what are available for all of our students, how we develop an attitude within our students that everyone is equal and of value, so that there's no other about us. And is taking a hard look at our history and looking at our curriculum in that way. So it's going to be a big project, and that's one of the things that I've talked about before. Is we have to be collaborative. We have to involve parents with a wide variety of views. We have to involve our educators, and the school board has to be involved in that process. So it's going to be a process, and I think we have the tools to do it.
Thank you. Mr. Lemay.
Thank you. Diversity comes not only from our staffing, but from also assuring that we teach a correct and accurate, well-rounded education to all of our students. As we look back at what was being taught, we realize there's been some taint in how the facts have been presented. I believe it's important for everyone in history to have their story told and accurately. That being said, I don't believe there's going to be a radical shift in what the district teaches today. The New York State Department of Education is who mandates curriculum for the entire state. An initiative like this would only come about if they changed the curriculum. Now, if the state did choose to approve such a change, then the Curriculum Council here in our district, which is made up of teachers, administrators, and parents, would work throughout the year on how to implement those changes and what those changes would look like. An excellent TED Talk from the novelist, and I hope I get her name correctly, Chimamanda Adichie. I think I got it, thank you, who talks about the danger in telling one story. That if we only hear a single story about another person or country, we risk a critical misunderstanding. I encourage you all to watch this 18-minute TED Talk. The board and the district are talking about diversity, so this conversation could take place within the purview of the ongoing work as well. This is going to be a slow process, not one that takes place overnight or even this year. A process that historians will need to properly vet and not the New York Times. And as long as everyone is a part of the discussion, I feel that we can make the change that best reflects a much more accurate history.
Thank you. Dr. Singh.
Could you repeat the question again, please?
You must read it.
Yeah.
Should Williamsville schools incorporate race and social justice topics into the curriculum? If so, how? If not, why?
Thank you. I actually just saw the article that Maureen mentioned about the region's requirements for the race and diversity. And my personal opinion is we should incorporate different perspectives in our school curriculum, but that should be done at our school level, our school district level. The school curriculum board, which includes parents, should have a say in it. I strongly believe that we really need to take a hard look at what we have been teaching and see how we can make it better for everyone. We need to add more perspectives because it gives a whole, like Sean said, a whole rounded education, which we have to give our children. And of course, this curriculum has to be something that all of us agree on, the parents, the teachers, and within the purview of the state guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you. Reverend King.
Yes, I think one of the things that I have been hearing over the last several weeks over and over in this issue is will Williamsville introduce CRT, critical race theory, to our curriculum? I do not support that, not at the primary grade levels. I do support it perhaps at a secondary education, collegiate level as an elective. But what I do stand for and I believe in is that the district must really work very diligently to improve our diversity and our equality for students and equity in the learning realm for all, no matter what level of school experience they're at. Today, at the Board of Regents, they approved the Equity, Inclusion, and Diversity signed by Dr. Young, Chancellor. And it also promotes cultural responsive sustaining education format, a framework for the local districts to really work off of. And what I really hope for is that the board will be open to really looking hard and allowing a parental voice and a student voice, student representation for the proposed changes to any curriculum in the future when it comes to inclusion, culture, and racial equity. I think that is fundamentally important, and I'm open to that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Littman.
Thank you. I believe our district does, to some extent, include topics of diversity and race, as well as issues related to anti-Semitism, anti-Asian, and anti-Muslim topics, so that those issues are brought forward. And I think it has great value. One of the key things that we need to always think about is the operational definitions of what these topics are all about. And then getting together, there are consensus by getting together the instructional teams at the schools with the parents, and eventually instructional changes will come to the Board of Education, and then we would discuss them and analyze them. Just a little personal note, again, I have a long history in the diversity area. I've served on Buffalo State's Campus Diversity Committee, as well as the Intellectual Foundations Diversity Committee. And again, diversity goes hand in hand with inclusion and bringing everybody together to involve and listen to all of the narratives that best describe the experiences that all people have. And that makes our educational experiences that much richer knowing that everybody has a different background and a different view. And one of the things that I noticed in my many years in Williamsville, on and off the Board of Education, is many of our elementary schools and high schools, or all of them, have programs, have ways for students of different groups to be together and to share their cultures. And that is the value of a Williamsville education. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Borenstein.
Yes, thank you. First of all, may I say that Mr. LeMay's answer on the fly was one of the best responses I have ever heard to a question that he wasn't prepared for. Well done. Yeah, I actually feel very strongly about this, and I do believe that that our curriculum needs to reflect the actual history of our nation and reflect the diversity that already exists in our community. So I feel so strongly about this that, well, I voted for the district's first superintendent of color in our history, who not only was the best possible candidate for our district, but he brings a perspective that we haven't had in the past. So yes, I believe that the district should include these perspectives going forward. But as Sean has said, this is a State Department of Education direction that we would get. Our role as board members would be to advocate strongly to our legislators and others to include this when they're deliberating.
Okay, thank you. And the next question goes first to Ms. Poulin.
I think you just did her.
No, wait a minute.
Sean.
You're right. Right here, and I'm not even reading what I have in my little grid. Okay.
Yeah,
All right, Mr. LeMay. A substantial number of Williamsville students are racial, ethnic, and religious minorities. However, there is not the same representation in faculty, staff, and administration. Do you think this issue needs to be addressed? If yes, how? If no, why?
Statistics have shown that when minority students have at least one same race teacher, that they've improved attendance, they aren't suspended, or they are suspended less frequently, and they perform much better. Educational equity is where every student is supported in an environment and sees themselves in the curriculum and are respected. So this starts with looking at ourselves. Are we having those conversations? I know at the board and at the district level, we've started to have those conversations, and that's a solid first step, but that's only a first step. Funding the initiative, I can't just talk about it. We need to back it up with financial, meaning that future budgets have to support this goal. The hiring processes, are we unbiased in our hiring processes? What about the interview processes? Are we confident that implicit bias does not occur? Professional development and training is a must. So goals, short term, how can we recruit diverse teachers and administrators? But more long term, working with the colleges and the universities to help them recruit more diverse students interested in going into the public education sector. These are not quick fixes that will occur overnight, but ones that we will need to take baby steps and proceed slowly over time. It will lead to some difficult conversations, but produce some very big rewards. Dr. Darren Brown Hall mentioned during his interview to the board, I'm giving you private information, that we are not the melting pot our forefathers thought we would be. Instead, we have become a tossed salad of cultures and backgrounds. I couldn't say it more.
Thank you. Dr. Singh.
I agree. Our school teachers, teaching body, administrators, and the school board does not represent the diversity of our school district. It's something that we all have known for a while. It's not new. And in that regard, if I'm elected to the board, I am proposing we have a committee which I would like to call Diversity, Inclusion, Belonging Action Committee. This committee would be comprised of parents, teachers, students, community members, with the goal of with the multifaceted goal of improving diversity hires, improving diversity programs in our school, and uh, anything, everything related to diversity in our school. And to increase the diversity hires in our school, we also need a diverse recruiting team. Do we have that? We have to work on that. And we have to also adopt a high quality curriculum, which also incorporates diversity, so the kids who are learning in our classes feel they're part of the school. This creates more inclusion and more belonging. I mean, like how Sean said, we can be a tossed salad, but till there is inclusion and belonging, a tossed salad is just a different greens put together. We need to provide additional resources, training, workshops for the teachers, so they can help to teach our kids better. I mean, this cannot happen overnight. This is a slow process, and this has to happen over time. But we got to keep working on it. We cannot do something and stop. That's why we need this committee, which will monitor the progress, provide feedback, and constantly find ways to keep improving diversity programs in our school. This is long overdue, and we should start working on it as soon as we can. Thanks.
Thank you. Reverend King.
Thank you. I agree with Sean and I agree with Swaroop, and I really appreciate Swaroop's recommendations for a committee. I've been troubled during this whole campaign about the reflection of our current teaching corps and district leadership, because we can't develop meaningful diversity, equality, and equity policies when we don't reflect the students we teach. I would really hope that in the coming year, the new elected board would really set the tone and the policy for goal setting in the HR department, beginning with district leadership. I applaud the board for the hiring of Darren Brown Hall. I think that that was a great selection, and I look forward to him serving our district in a very great manner. But it goes more deeper than that. I think we have to have a real concerted goal and objective to hire and reach out into the educational institutions that are graduating some of the brightest and talented minority teachers of different races and cultures, and hire them and create a culture and an atmosphere that incentivizes their wanting to come to the Williamsville district. And that's what I would hope to accomplish in the coming year or two.
Thank you. Dr. Littman.
Thank you. Again, although I'm not a scientist by definition, I do know about human resources. And again, this has always been an important issue to me when I was on the board previously, because we know recruitment and selection is based on finding and hiring the best, most qualified people for a position. This was one of the issues I raised with the administration years ago. Basically, my concern was we had a very narrow focus in where we recruited our faculty. Again, we know diversity is made up of both internal and external components. The internal part really relates to the people's opinions, their views and thoughts on issues, as well as I, as a marketer, think about the demographics and the psychographics of people who are in different groups. But one thing is we need diversity of thought when we hire teachers. By doing that, by looking at various parts of this country, not just hiring locally. Again, also being from Massachusetts, maybe we should bring some more people from Massachusetts. Look at various colleges, places that look at education maybe a bit differently than we have. We can work with schools of education. Again, I teach at Buffalo State. I work with training teachers. Buffalo State has a vast culturally diverse population, and their teachers, I'm sure, would love to work in this district. I have some of my former teachers who work within this district. But again, the key thing is, having a process and procedure in place that includes and draws in everyone and does not exclude anybody based on any artificially set criteria. Our students need a faculty who represent the community.
Thank you. Mr. Borenstein.
Thank you. So the goal has always been to provide the best possible education for our children. And so naturally, that means hiring the best possible teachers to deliver what we call a Williamsville quality education. However, surely the talent pool has got to be larger than what we've been looking at in the past. And so we on the board really dug into this question to try and determine how it is that our teaching workforce is not as diverse as we would like it to be. And this has become a priority for the district. So I'm pretty confident that going forward, especially under the leadership of Dr. Brown Hall, some programs and practices will be recommended to the board in the future that will address this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Poulin.
I do agree that the teaching force, the faculty, the staff should have some representation that the children can identify with so that they can see themselves. I think the recruiting is always a hard thing. I know that as a principal, when I was trying to recruit teachers, it's always a hard thing is how do you get outside of a particular subset of people who are available? And I think one of the things, if we really want to dig deep and have some real lasting change, is to look within our school district. We have those people sitting in our seats, but right now they're students. How can we enable them, whether we get some community partners to help with scholarships for them to come back to Williamsville as teachers? One of the things that I think we have to do is raise the bar on the status of teaching as a profession, so that more and more of the people who have some difference, that have some diversity, will choose to become teachers. And then they will come back to us and fill those positions. That's a longer timeline than what we can't do it tomorrow, but it is a timeline for us to look forward to moving into that direction. So that's what I would add to many of the things that have already been said.
Thank you. Dr. Singh, you will be the first person to answer the next question. Do you think there should continue to be an online-only option for students in the fall? Why or why not?
Well, assuming our COVID rates are down as they are now, I'm expecting school will reopen 5 days a week for most students. But online has been of some advantage to few of our students, especially those who seem to perform better with online learning, and those who have special needs might be performing better with online. So it is something that we should not dismiss once regular school opens. And online should always be an option, but that is subject to a lot of other things, like the quality of online education should be on par with our regular 5-day school learning. And to do that, we need teachers who are dedicated for online teaching, who are dedicated and they provide as good quality as they would for in-class learning. These are complex issues and they require budgetary and, more importantly, input from the parents. If parents bring up the initiative that their kids would do better online, then this is something the school should definitely consider. Also, say my daughter wants to learn Portuguese and a school in Amherst is teaching Portuguese. Online option would work very well there too. So there are some courses which might not be offered in our school, but gives our students an opportunity to take the classes elsewhere online. So I would not dismiss remote learning or online learning completely. I mean, we never know what would happen if COVID made a comeback. I would pray it doesn't, and I hope it doesn't, so our kids can go back to school, but we have to be prepared. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And next, Reverend King.
Yes, online learning. I support the continuation of it in some form. I think COVID has impacted us in many ways. And although we support the return to 5 days a week, there are those that truly need to remain remote, and COVID is not going to be disappearing over the next year or two. We're still going to be dealing this for time to come. We've also learned many things about the health and safety, how we interact, socialize, and we speak about the students, and some have benefited from what I've learned from conversation with parents and want to remain remote. But there's also the element of teacher safety. We find that there are some teachers that, for personal reason, can't be in the classroom, perhaps have a medical issue that they have actually needed to remain remote. And I think the district really needs to take, many districts system-wide need to look at continuing this, because I think there's a benefit to community for the parent to be able to elect, if that's an individual choice, to remain remote and have that remote scholastic experience on par with those that are in seats in the building. And that's what I speak about when we talk about equity education, that would be delivered with an excellent program where they would thrive. And so I would support that, and the examination of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Littman.
If we remember that education provides opportunity and developmental activities for all students, then again, we would have these options. From this year doing more remote learning, I believe we built up the technology, the infrastructure, as well as the teacher capability and student responsibility to understand the parameters of remote learning. So I would believe that it has value as an option. You know, we also have in Williamsville, the AIM model, the academic innovation model for some students. So again, the goal of meeting students' needs. Again, this brings another option, just like dual credit for students who take college courses while they're at the high school setting that we worked on years ago in the district. But the key thing is, again, online education has its value. But if, in my mind, as a department chair at Buffalo State, having to convert 85 classes midstream from in-person to online is challenging. And again, it's important that we reach our students. The best way to reach our students is to have them physically in the classroom. So the option to have students physically in the classroom is always the first priority, because again, they'll learn more, they'll socialize better, and they will have a better educational experience. But again, as Saul pointed out, and as Terry pointed out, options, the opportunity to have online programming will help some students, and that's our goal, help all students.
Thank you. Mr. Borenstein.
Thank you. No doubt the fully remote option has helped us through this crisis. But actually, I don't have a fully evolved answer for that question. I guess my answer would be informed by what the community and the experts tell us is possible. And I'm just not sure what the right way to go on this is. So like I said, I would hold back and just like to hear from people who know about the possibilities and what is possible for remote learning outside of this crisis period that we've been living through, to be able to answer that question.
All right. Ms. Poulin.
I would have to concur with a lot of what's been said. The in-person model is always going to be our first priority, and that the model that we would choose the most. But like lots of things that have happened over COVID, businesses have learned that people working from home isn't such a bad thing, and maybe that's how we'll continue. I don't think anybody's advocating for continuing remote learning for everyone all the time by any means. But there are instances, as Dr. Singh mentioned also, that it could be very helpful for students who are not able to be in school for a period of time. How we go about doing that would be a little bit of a challenge. We would have to have some teachers who feel very competent with using that method. And then the big question, as Mr. Bornstein kind of raised up, is, well, maybe, because we don't really know what September is going to bring. We don't know if all of our parents are going to feel 100% safe in sending their students back to school. We don't know what the COVID situation is. So I think, as the school district has demonstrated, we have to be ready to pivot in any moment to any different option. So yes, maybe is probably my best answer.
Thank you. Mr. Lemay.
Well, we've made it work. Was it perfect? Far from it. Could we improve it? I think for sure we could make some improvements. Lots of technology and training went into implementing both the remote and the high flex model this past year. From a teacher's point of view, it was double the work. It was 10 times more stressful. Teachers had to figure out how to instruct both to a local and to a remote classroom, how they could keep the attention of the remote students engaged while the camera stayed stationary in a classroom. How do we manage and make sure that students are at their computer, paying attention, or even being engaged? So a remote only program going forward, it would need to have a dedicated staff for only remote learning or a remote academy. It would not align, at least not in real time, to what's happening in the classroom, which makes it difficult for somebody to switch between an in-person and a remote model. And don't let me get started on snow days. There's the slippery slope, right? Limitations in the technology itself. I mean, we made this work, but there was a lot of things we could have done better. And if we had millions of dollars, I'm sure we could accomplish that. I'm not quite sure that if by this fall, that this is something that's going to be a practical solution for us to look at. I think maybe in a course of an emergency, yeah, we can flip. If we know that we're going to have schools closed for 2 weeks, I believe our teachers would step up and be able to pivot immediately to a remote only model. But I think more technology and preparations need to be worked out if we're to do this full-time moving forward in order for us to provide a certified Williamsville education.
Thank you. And the next question will be our last question before closing statements. And Reverend King will be the first person to answer. What improvements need to be made to the Board of Education, and how can you as an individual board member help bring about those improvements?
Hope changing the culture and building consensus among the board, understanding where the loyalty lies of the board decision. I think one of the things that I have become, aware of through social media, through the court cases, through public information, is the real influence that the teachers union has imparted on the board. I just hope that the board can remain independent and really get back to being a body that places the students, parents, taxpayers first, and allowing some conversation with parents. I think that will go a long way towards healing in Williamsville and helping bridge that divide that I just recently heard a board member speak of on the record about how divisive our community was. And that saddens me because it shouldn't be. And I think that it starts with the board. If we have to have training, have others come in to help guide and learn to function independently with the superintendent, I'd be open to all of that, that guides us where students are the priority. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Littman.
Okay, I may be in the best position for this one because I have the most experience of any person at this table in serving on the board. And it's different. In the 6 years I've been off the board, it's changed and it hasn't changed for the better. The idea is Board of Education is about meeting the mission of the district and exhibiting the values of the community. It is about the students and taking care of the needs of the students, and that is of high value. We have to do the right thing. What does it mean to do the right thing when you're a board member? It means to listen. It means to interact with positive views towards the community. It means to have the board, a board that is trained properly, that works for the greater good, not individual outside influences. You need competent people who are here for the right reasons. This is about public service. This isn't about politics. It has come in the years I've been off the board to be more about politics. Who do you support and what are your views on everything? And that becomes a problem. So the key thing to my mind is if you get the board with the same goals, every year the board comes up with its plan that I've read. You have plans in all of the areas that you want to accomplish, is to stay on track for that and to work diligently together with the community, with the teachers, and with any outside sources you need to be a success, because a district doesn't work if the board doesn't work. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Borenstein.
Thank you. In the 3 years that I've been on the board, I've come to really appreciate the time we take to establish our annual goals for the board. And that really is the opportunity to address some of the concerns that we've just heard about. And the board is addressing those concerns. And over the 3 years, I remember us talking about needs to be a better communication with the community. So the goal became fanning out into the community and making ourselves as available as possible by acting as liaisons, serving on committees, foundation boards, with the goal of sending information out to the community and then receiving information back to the board. So the communication piece has improved dramatically, even if not everybody sees that. I see it, and I'm proud of the work that we've been doing, and it sort of makes for a big job for volunteers. We have a lot of work to do. We embrace it and we do it. And I actually enjoy the time where I can get out of a board meeting and go sit with the PTSA, for example, at Mill and others. And that is our opportunity to improve communications. And so we see where the improvements need to be, and each year we address them with goals. So I'm very pleased and proud of how we've handled that in the past. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Poulin? What improvements need to be made to the Board of Education, and how can you as an individual board member help bring about those improvements?
From not having experience on the board, I have to say that my perception is that there needs to be more opportunities for give and take, and more formal and informal channels for communication to happen within all populations. As I read over the independent review document, it seemed like that the communication was all funneled from into one person, and that's not a healthy situation. So we have to be sure that all voices can be heard by the board: parents, teachers, building administrators, central office administrators, and that the board communicates with people in that fashion. I think there's lot of ways that I can be a factor in that. I think one of the things that I have done in the past that has been very successful has been about building teams and building coalitions. And that's a skill that I have and would love to be able to assist the school board with. Bringing people together on something that we can agree on, even if we're on different sides, and focusing on what is our main point here, and then how do we get there? So building coalitions, building the opportunity for consensus is where I feel are my strengths that I can contribute to the board.
Thank you. Mr. Lemay.
Thank you. I think the underlying question here is how the board reconnects with all constituents. And listen, no student in the district has had the school year that they've deserved. Not the seniors missing out on homecoming and being able to enjoy their last year, nor the kindergarten kids that even getting to a real recess, or even the students with IEPs struggling with service delivery. Institutions and people have been doing the best they can with the differing degrees of success. And no one likes this. I honestly cannot blame people for being upset. The real question is how to help families in the district find common ground and how the board can help that with that. It is important now more than ever to continue to be transparent and open. We have community forums. These are two-way dialogues with the board and the public. No topic is not available to be discussed on the table. Reopening planned forums at all the school levels occurred this past year. That was a step. We can go better. We have 14 PTSAs, one for each school and SEPSA. These are where we can have two-way conversations, question and answers, as there are board liaisons that attend all of these meetings. Certainly, we have board docs, which allows every single board meeting and every note that's taken there to be publicly shown, presentations included. We're now doing weekly videos, both from the district and from the schools. Williamsville does more in being open and transparent than most other communities and districts, but there are always ways that we could do more and be open to suggestions. It's my opinion that being there to answer questions, let stakeholders vent their frustrations, and give as much information as I can is the step in the healing process. I also hope that our new superintendent and pandemic showing signs of end, that we'll be able to reach across the table with one another, even in disagreement, and come together realizing all we have is the same goals in mind at the end of the day. I may not have all the answers, but I'm not willing to give up trying.
Thank you. Dr. Singh.
The Williamsville School Board is elected by the Williamsville community, and it should represent the voices of all our stakeholders, the students, the teachers, the community members. But what happened last year? Last year, we were questioning the effectiveness of the school board, whether doing their job, whether setting the right policy, that being one of the goals, one of the objectives of the school board. I mean, there was no clear communication between all our stakeholders, the parents, teachers, and that's very important to set a comprehensive and an equitable policy. I mean, for decisions like with far-reaching consequences like school reopening, the board has to take everyone into confidence before making an important decision. The board has to win back the trust it lost during last year's school opening. The administration with Dr. McKenna did work on improving communications, but it still has ways to go. There is to be more transparency from the board, better communication. And if I were a board member, I would research every policy that the board puts in front before taking a position on it. I believe that we need a proactive board to advocate for our children. And yes, our community is divided. And I would work very hard to bridge the differences and get everyone behind us, behind our children. Thank you.
Thank you. And so now for closing statements, we will go in reverse order and begin with Dr. Littman. And you'll each have 2 minutes for your closing statements.
A strong educational system is our community's investment in our children. I have experience and knowledge as well as a passion for board change, and we really do need a change. It is not about me, it is about the we. What we as a board and community do to focus on the mission to develop the unique potential and character each student possesses. I am here for one reason, change to help students. What's valuable about me? I believe in a board of education that listens and makes strong decisions. I'm embarrassed by observing the misguided current board who talks down to and lectures parents. I believe in hard work for the greater educational good. I believe in people. I listen and support the development of others, including our teachers. I believe in excellence. In 2015, I received the SUNY Chancellor Award for Teaching Excellence, the highest honor in SUNY, as well as a Board of Education Excellence Award. I believe in preparation for each meeting. I do background research and ask questions. I advocate the best for our students. I believe in two-way communication and collaboration, and I'm the only one in this table with college ties. I am honest, open, caring, competent, and have no agenda. I make objective, data-driven decisions based on policy, law, and ethics. I have a good head and a good heart. In conclusion, what matters? Endorsements do not matter. Politics do not matter. Only students matter. Let's move the district forward with the Board of Education change. My father taught my brothers and me that the truth hurts. The truth is if we do not all work together, our community is hurt, education is hurt, but directly our students are hurt. This year's board decision, these two incumbents at the table have clearly hurt our students' opportunity for quality education. What matters most is what we do for our children. And as my son said when I asked him before this, any words of encouragement, he said, "Don't worry, Dad, you're the most qualified. You got this." I would appreciate your vote.
Thank you. Reverend King.
This election is about culture change. It's about providing an independent board that doesn't surrender to outside interests, where students are placed first and foremost in all decisions. I'm not sure of the motivations of the past board and how we got where we were, but to the voters, it doesn't have to remain that way, because on May 18th, we can make that change for the greater good of our community. You've heard us all tonight answer the questions. You know our resumes, you know our qualifications. There are very good candidates here that are before us. But as a community, we have to ask the question, who is best to change the culture and set policy for the coming years that will affect our students for generations to come? For me, it's about students first, parental respect and recognition, teachers supported for excellence in education with the tools necessary to perform at the highest level, and to honor the union with a responsible contract because they're necessary and needed in our community and the workplace, open communication, board transparency, fiscal accountability to taxpayers, and a board that understands and strives for equitable education for all students. In summary, I hope you'll take a hard look at my candidacy and qualifications and what I've accomplished in the last 22 years as a consensus builder, and the work that we've done in the city, throughout this community, and throughout this region in Western New York. And I commit to you that I will work every day to be a voice for students and communicate openly with all parents and be a listening ear for those that really need to have someone be concerned about their child's wellness. And I thank you, and I look forward to serving if elected, and I'm grateful for this opportunity.
Thank you. Dr. Singh.
I apologize for a small digression. I wanted to thank all those who called me or emailed me to ask me how India was doing and how my family is doing back there. And they wanted to do more for India. I want to express my condolences to the lives lost due to COVID. Over 500,000 lives lost in the United States here, and 300,000 plus and counting back in India. My prayers and thoughts are with them. Coming back, to paraphrase my daughter's favorite author, Rick Riordan, fairness doesn't mean everyone gets the same. Fairness means everyone gets what they need to succeed. We need to give our kids what they need to succeed. Our school is a central part of Williamsville community, and they reflect and celebrate our diversity. Last year's school opening showed us we need a proactive board that voices all our concerns. I believe we need a diverse perspective on the board. We have a long wish list and our resources are limited. As a board member, I will work with parents, teachers, students, community members to find solutions that do not compromise on the quality of our children's education and provide equitable opportunity for each and every child to learn. We should not forget our main goal is to motivate our children to learn. As an independent board member with professional research, management training, volunteer experience, and diverse background, I will advocate for all students, parents, and teachers and community members on the school board. I request you all to vote on the board elections on November 18th, and I request your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lemay.
I want to start by saying thank you to the PTSA Council, especially Claire, Sarah, and Ona for your help tonight. The League of Women Voters and Terry Park for moderating. Lynn Carey and Nick Filipowski from District Office putting together the logistics and the technology for tonight. And especially the community at home for watching. It's been a very difficult year for everyone. No one has had the experience they wanted or deserved. From students being forced to sit in front of a computer for hours a day, teachers for having to learn new ways to teach them. Unseen by almost everyone, our custodians have been doing far more work than usual to keep our buildings sanitized and cleaned. Administrators have been constantly planning and then replanning with every pivot from the state. Lastly, the parents who have had to balance homeschooling, technology, a pandemic, all while trying to maintain some form of normalcy. Tempers have flared, children and adults have had meltdowns. We've made mistakes and we've learned from them. If there is one thing this pandemic has revealed, it's that we all have taken normal for granted. But on a personal level, I think the last year has shown the interest people have in education and the role that the district plays in all of our lives. We are trying to do the best we can with uncertain information. If reelected, I will work hard at continuing to be a responsible board member, taking my proven track record into the next term with focus on current and new objectives, assuring a smooth and safe reopening to all of our schools this September, enhancing mental and emotional well-being of our students and staff, promoting more diversity throughout the district, continuing to pressure politicians for proper funding of public education while fully funding any mandates that they pass, smaller class sizes, and improvements in technology while continuing to provide fiscally responsive budgets. I can't be everything to everyone, and I hope my track record has proven my commitment to the school community. I thank you all for your passion. I look forward to working with you all as we build the new normal, and I ask for your vote on Tuesday, please.
Thank you. Ms. Poulin.
Well, again, thank you to everyone for the opportunity this evening. Why should you vote for me? I'm running for a position on the school board as a way to put my passion and my 31 years of experience in the field of education to the service of the Williamsville community. I bring fresh eyes. I bring fresh ideas and different experiences to this process. I'm a team player, not just as a member of a team, but in building teams. I want to close by going back to what I stated at the beginning. I've been a resident of Williamsville for nearly 8 years and am greatly concerned about the lack of trust and adversarial relationships that I've witnessed in recent months within the Williamsville community. What I would most like to see accomplished over the next 3 years would be to see the development of a renewed atmosphere of collaboration and unity within the district. What would this look like? This would include increased respect for the professionalism of the teachers and the building administrators, a sense of confidence in the superintendent and the school board, an attitude of collaboration with all families who would be partners, and a support from the civic community. With this as a framework, I know that the students will achieve and flourish. My ears and mind will always be open to listen to anyone who has a concern or an idea for consideration. Collaboration, transparency, honesty are the practices I hope to exemplify. I believe I have the skills, experiences, and aptitudes and to make a significant difference to the Williamsville School Board. And I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Borenstein.
My thanks again to the PTSA Council, to the League of Women Voters of Buffalo and Niagara, sorry, for hosting this important event. Also, thanks to the district team who facilitated all of this, District Clerk Lynn Carey and Director of Communications Nick Filipowski. Thank you both very much for that. So, a passion for music and the arts, battle-tested experience, and a heartfelt desire to serve. Who do I serve? It's very simple. The families and students of Williamsville, period. I have served proudly alongside like-minded board members these past 3 years who have the very same mission as I do. We serve the families and students of our district, and that's it. And so I look forward to Tuesday, Election Day, and I hope that through this process I have earned your support, and I look forward to continuing my service on the Board of Directors. Thank you.
Thank you. I would have a very difficult time if I were living in Williamsville selecting only a couple of you to be on the board. I have moderated this candidate forum several times, and every time I am impressed with all of the candidates. It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to represent the League of Women Voters of Buffalo Niagara. And I wish all of the candidates well, because I know that even those of you who are not elected to the board this time will find some way to serve the families of Williamsville. I also want to remind people that there is a primary in both the Democrat and Republican Party for Erie County Sheriff on June 22nd. And so that's an important election if you are a registered voters. Early voting begins, actually it was from June 12th to the 20th. And candidate information for the Erie County Sheriff may be viewed on the League's website. It's vote411.org, okay? That is the League of Women Voters voter information program. Vote411.org. So I thank you. And Sarah, did you have any closing remarks?
I don't think I put up